It's not even the sugar belt, it's entire Maharashtra and particularly the hinterlands of Maharashtra, where the legacy of Ajit Pawar would be long remembered as a very strong organizational leader, not only of one city or one town, but the entire state. I think, on the whole, people and history analysts, everyone would later on look upon Ajit Pawar's legacy in this famous and ambivalent term called development. Somehow, these hiccups that we have been discussing, either the scams, allegations, or his aligning with the BJP, would be probably overshadowed by that something which a politician of Ajit Pawar's stature could really create, and that is an aura of the ability to bring about development.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Ajit Pawar's sudden death has stunned Maharashtra, but it's also left a gaping void at the top of his Nationalist Congress party, as well as the Maharashtra government. So today we ask, how will he be remembered? What impact will his death have on the NCP and the state government? And what will be history's judgment on a politician who is willing to break his party to become Deputy Chief Minister? My guest is someone whose understanding of Maharashtra politics is unrivaled, the Chief Editor of Studies in Indian Politics, Professor Suhas Palshikar. Professor Palshikar, Ajit Pawar was elected a record 8 times from Baramati, and in addition, he immersed himself in the development of his constituency and Maharashtra's wider sugar belt. How do you believe he will be remembered by the people of Baramati?
Oh, yes, for Baramati, it would be unparalleled in a sense. The only comparison probably would be with his uncle, the senior Pawar, Sharad Pawar, but otherwise, a very dynamic leader, someone who was so much involved in the local politics of Baramati that one couldn't imagine Baramati politics or Baramati development without Ajit Pawar. But as you said in your introductory observation, it's more than that. It's not even the sugar belt, it's entire Maharashtra and particularly the hinterlands of Maharashtra, where the legacy of Ajit Pawar would be long remembered as a very strong organizational leader, not only of one city or one town, but the entire state.
So would I be right in saying that he wasn't just a much respected leader, he was for many a much loved leader as well?
Yes, particularly in his own party. He was a loved one, a leader for whom the affections of his followers would be something one cannot imagine very easily.
Now, but the truth is, his NCP party performed poorly in the recent local elections in Pune as well as in Pimpri Chinchwad. What's the explanation for that, and how much of a shock would that have been to him?
I don't think for a politician, seasoned politician like Ajit Pawar, it would have been a shock. He would know what is going to happen. And yet the fighting spirit was there. He was ready to take on the BJP. Because in this belt where he lost, as you mentioned, he lost not to any other party, but to his friends, the BJP itself. And this capacity to even take on the BJP in spite of being with the BJP would be something that would be remembered long.
It was a unique quality because very few politicians who are allies of the BJP would dare to take on the BJP as well.
Yes, I mean, the Shiv Sena tried to do it earlier when they initially aligned with the BJP after 2014. But in the process, they got decimated. In the case of Ajit Pawar, he was ready to take on the fight into their own turf, so to say.
Now, Ajit Pawar was not just the leader of his own faction of the NCP, you could probably say he was the party itself. What impact will his sudden surprise death have on the party, and can it survive without him?
Yes, that is where we get into more serious analysis, really speaking, because the way most of our parties are organized, they are leader centered, family centered sometimes. And without a leader, without the family, it is very difficult for such parties to survive. That would probably be the fate of the NCP led by Ajit Pawar also, that it was so much dependent on him, so much dependent upon his savvy, his political manipulations, that it would be difficult to imagine an NCP without a Pawar, either the senior one or Ajit Dada.
So, your hunch is that in the medium term, the NCP faction led by Ajit Pawar will cease to exist. In which case, what will happen to it? Will it in the interim have a new leader? Is that likely to be Praful Patel, or might it choose to merge with the Sharad Pawar faction, or even possibly merge with the BJP?
I think in the short run, there would be a crisis in the party. And when such crises happen in our parties in India, they normally go back to the traditional resolve. That is to say, go back to the family. In this case, I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to the family of Ajit Dada, either Mrs. Sunetra Pawar herself, who is an MP now, or his son, and ask them to lead the party, which would be a nominal gesture of loyalty to Ajit Dada. Because otherwise, in his party, there are so many strong leaders that it would be difficult for them to negotiate with each other and then get the loyalty of the cadres of the party. So that would be in the short run. In the medium run, as you said, the negotiations with the NCP led by Sharad Pawar were already going on. So that attraction would always be there to go back to Sharad Pawar. Most of these leaders of the Ajit Dada led NCP have been loyal and emotionally attached to Sharad Pawar in their lifetimes. So it would be easy for them to go back to Sharad Pawar. But there is a caveat: Sharad Pawar cannot give them power. And therefore, short of merger with the BJP, I think there would be a steady stream over the years towards the BJP, particularly the younger ones who know that the BJP is a party which would give them share in power, would gradually be attracted to the BJP. And the younger ones are not ideologically driven, so they wouldn't have any qualms going towards the BJP.
Let's for a moment, Professor Palshikar, focus on the Mahayuti government, of which Ajit Pawar's NCP was an important part. With 235 seats, there's no immediate danger to the Mahayuti government, but will Devendra Fadnavis move to appoint a new deputy chief minister from the NCP, or because there's no obvious candidate, or may I put it like this, there's no easy candidate to choose, might he decide not to do so?
He would want not to have a deputy chief minister from the NCP now. However, given the emotional shock that this tragedy has produced, he might probably compromise and give that position to someone from the family so that there is at least a gesture that they respect. In today's newspapers, more than the NCP, the grief of the BJP is probably even more evident in their advertisements and notices in the newspapers in Maharashtra. So, cynically speaking, I wouldn't be surprised if, while the BJP becomes more dominant and ascendant within the Mahayuti, they would make this nominal gesture towards the NCP for the time being.
What's your hunch of the two? Is it like to be Sunetra Pawar, his wife, or his son Parth Pawar, who stood for elections and lost? Which of the two do you think is likely to step in, even if it's in an interim capacity as the leader of the party?
I think de facto it would be Parth, but formally it might go to the bereaved wife, Mrs. Sunetra Pawar,
But
just in order to avoid many eyebrows being raised.
but de facto it will be Parth.
Yes.
Do
That's
you
my hunch. I mean, it is too early to say because the family still is in grief, and I don't know if there are any indications yet. And I'm not privy to such gossip that might be happening in the politics of the state.
tell me, what sort of relationship did Ajit Pawar have with Devendra Fadnavis? As far back as 2019, he attempted to split the NCP to help Fadnavis continue as chief minister, but that didn't succeed. Were they as close as this suggests?
I think the relationship was entirely instrumental from both sides. For Devendra Fadnavis, to divide the NCP, but also to reduce the importance of Sharad Pawar was probably the most important challenge. Unless he had met that challenge, Devendra Fadnavis couldn't have risen to the current stature that he enjoys. For Ajit Pawar, A, to come out of the shadow of his uncle, but B, also to ensure that he and his followers would have a long term in power sharing politics of the state. He wanted to make sure that there are contacts with the BJP. But beyond that, I don't think there would be any personal equation as such. Both knew that this is for interim, both knew that this is instrumental, both knew that this is out of necessity.
How important was it for Ajit Pawar to want to move out of the shadow of his uncle Sharad Pawar?
As a personality, it is always easy for someone if they are on their own. This tag of being a kind of understudy to Sharad Pawar, being his nephew, being part of the dynasty, is useful up to a certain extent. But when you are wanting to do politics on your own, you have your own abilities and your own followers, naturally, the urge to come out of that shadow is much more. And in Maharashtra, such has been the dominance of Sharad Pawar, not only actual political dominance, but also the symbolic dominance of the persona of Sharad Pawar, that naturally an ambitious politician would want to come out of that shadow. That is what Ajit Dada probably wanted to do over the past 10 years or so.
Now, clearly, over his career, but particularly from 2023 onwards, when he broke with his uncle, he became one of the best known and clearly one of the most highly regarded politicians in Maharashtra. How much of a void does his death leave in the state's politics?
Yes, in two senses, it would be a void. In the first place, as I said, there was someone who was aligned with the BJP but was a counterweight to the BJP. And that would now create a void. The BJP would be now probably in a position to roughshod all allies and all opposition. So that is a void. The other sense in which it would be a void is because of the organizational capacity which Ajit Pawar had shown, the administrative ability that he had shown, as a result of which, although it was a kind of family enterprise, one could say, he would always have his own abilities to organize a party. And that, I think, is going to be the major issue in Maharashtra. How will politics be organized outside of the BJP? If there is no politician of the caliber of Ajit Pawar, then how one really understands the political dynamics of various important families which are important in a given district, don't have the state level reach. For them, a leader like Ajit Pawar was a major link from the district to the state level. So there would be a void in that sense also.
You're also suggesting, aren't you, Professor Palshikar, that with his demise, the way has been cleared for the BJP to dominate Maharashtra?
Cynical as it may seem, yes. Maharashtra is different in a sense from UP, where a sudden shift occurred in 2017. Whereas in Maharashtra, for last 10 years, BJP has been trying to sort of fulfill the dream of Shata Pratishat BJP, 100% BJP, BJP everywhere. And Maharashtra has been a stumbling block. That has not been possible, just as it has not been possible in Karnataka also. They came very close to majority, but they were always wary whether they would really get a majority. So first they had to have Shiv Sena as their ally. Then they had to have NCP as their ally, and then both factions as their allies. As a result of which, this 100% rule of the BJP has always remained somewhat of a distant dream. That dream now comes closer for the BJP suddenly with the demise of a very strong, tall, consolidated, manipulative leader like Ajit Pawar.
Let's talk a little about him as an individual personally. He became Deputy Chief Minister 6 times and was on 2 occasions willing to split his party for that job. Now, I know all politicians are ambitious, even when they deny it, perhaps even more so in that case. But was Ajit Pawar willing to breach political morality to achieve his ends? That's the impression many people have.
It depends upon how we understand the term political morality. In the current political atmosphere of the country, which is ideologically divided, aligning with the BJP definitely seems to be transcending that threshold of political morality. On the other hand, if you look from Ajit Pawar's perspective, you would find that for him, to get hold of state power was an important political ambition, but also an important dream. He would believe that his politics would bring a better Maharashtra than anyone else. And in that dream, he was prepared to go a long way. He always wanted to go a long way. This politics, in a sense, believes that power and controlling power or having access to power is an important pathway to successful politics. Remaining in opposition is a handicap. That was the psychology within which many like him operate.
Commenting on his style, in the op-ed you wrote for the Indian Express today, you said he was capable of running with the hare and hunting with the hounds. Did you intend that as a compliment or as criticism?
It's a comment, I would say, neither a criticism nor a compliment. The game he was playing, particularly for the past 2 years, and this description is for that purpose. In the past 2 years, he was willing to share power with the BJP, and at the same time, very determined to carve out his own niche in the politics of the state. That was a tall order. There you can find out many instances where he clearly pointed out that this Muslim bashing is not something that he would like to do himself, doesn't subscribe to that either. So he would go along with BJP, which would keep doing Muslim bashing, but distinguish himself from saying that we don't subscribe to that. Now, that I think is the crucial difference between those allies of the BJP, current allies at the national level or elsewhere, who have steadfastly stayed quiet, silent about BJP's controversial positions, and Ajit Pawar, who, in spite of being in a susceptible position in state politics, had the courage to say that we don't subscribe to this and our party is different.
So this is very interesting. He was secular and therefore different from the BJP in terms of not willingly and happily bashing Muslims. But at the same time, he was also adept at running with the hare and hunting with the hounds. He managed to combine both qualities.
That's right. I think what he was doing in the short run was trying to do both, keep his identity as non-communal and at the same time ride the BJP's Satta Rath, as you may call it, the chariot of power, so that he would gain, his cadres would gain, and they would have a strong foothold in Maharashtra.
Now, in the early part of this century, his name was involved in an irrigation scam and he was forced to resign as Deputy Chief Minister in 2012. Earlier, there were allegations of an involvement in a bank scam. Last year, his son's name featured in a land scam. What's the truth about all these scams, and was Ajit Pawar tarnished by them?
Frankly, first part of your question is there ever any truth to allegations of scams in our country? Uh, in both BJP's politics today, but yesteryears also, if you are with me, then there are no scams around you. If you are not with me, then there are scams with you. So I wouldn't really go into those scams. As far as tarnishing the image is concerned, I think our electorate has really grown up to really not worry about these newspaper and media headlines about scams, except for the loyal voters of the opposition party, the BJP in this particular case. The voters have a more, let us say, meaningful and at the same time instrumental relationship with their leaders. So long as they get the delivery of governance, they are less interested in the allegations of scams until sometimes there is a tipping point. In Maharashtra politics, Ajit Pawar was synonymous with dynamism and with development. With these two qualities, for the ordinary public, the questions of scams come secondary. They become less important. And that is where, in a sense, the beauty and the strength of Ajit Pawar's politics really lies.
Now, according to the Hindu, he was not known to have personal friends or a personal life, and he did not engage with the media either. Assuming that that is a correct description of the man, it's very different to other politicians, isn't it?
I think he was more keen on building his own networks, and that he had been doing for 3 decades. The networks that would really stand in good stead when you are in politics, rather than building the media image. He was, in that sense, though he was, as you initially said, relatively younger, he belonged to that old style of politics where the media will keep on commenting on you. You may have adverse media or you may have favorable media. What is more important is that you have to have strong linkages to the ground and, more importantly, with the intermediaries, because in politics, between the leader and the voters, there is a strong chain of intermediaries. And cultivating that chain and having good relations with that chain has been the hallmark of politics of Ajit Dada.
And he clearly both was able to cultivate ground level workers and be able to relate to them, and also at the same time cultivate the intermediaries. He was successful in both.
That's right. That is where his strength belonged. In a sense, I don't know whether he would have liked this comment, but in that sense, he really belongs to the style of politics of Sharad Pawar himself. Though Sharad Pawar, in a sense, has also cultivated media to a certain extent, the main strength of Sharad Pawar's politics is exactly what Ajit Dada adopted from his uncle, and that is a continuous care of your chain of intermediaries, your associates, and having linkages to the ground.
You mentioned Sharad Pawar, and you mentioned how Ajit Pawar not imitated, but followed the same strategy of building up contacts on the ground as well as intermediaries. What sort of relationship did he have with his uncle? And how was that affected by his decision to split the NCP and ally with the BJP?
Honestly, I don't think I'm competent to answer that as far as their personal relations are concerned. I just don't know.
But do you suspect that there was, in fact, damage to the relationship? Because certainly the family maintains that there's a difference between parivar and politics. Do you accept that?
I think there must have been some reservations of late, but over the years, both knew each other well and therefore both understood each other well. I think, that is how I would sum it up, that Ajit Dada understood that Sharad Pawar had a different way of looking at politics, particularly from the 90s onwards. Sharad Pawar's politics sort of centered around his national ambitions, all India ambitions. Sharad Pawar also knew that for Ajit Dada, controlling the state and its politics was of primary importance, and therefore his decisions, Ajit Dada's decisions, were more driven by considerations of and calculations of state level politics. I think they understood, and whether there was warmth or not, whether there was close loyalty or not, these are questions probably political folklore would later on keep talking about. I don't know about that.
Finally, Professor Palshikar, as a political scientist who's closely followed Ajit Pawar's career, how do you think history will remember him? Will history be kind, or will there be rough edges to history's judgment?
I think, on the whole, people and history analysts, everyone would later on look upon Ajit Pawar's legacy in this famous and ambivalent term called development. Somehow, these hiccups that we have been discussing, either the scams, allegations, or his aligning with the BJP, would be probably overshadowed by that something which a politician of Ajit Pawar's stature could really create, and that is an aura of the ability to bring about development, a continuous immersion in the idea of development. People may agree or disagree with what development he brought. People may agree or disagree with the idea of development that he had. But I think that ultimately would then be the legacy of Ajit Pawar, which would be remembered. History, in a sense, is always kinder than we present commentators really are. And therefore, I think he would be looked upon from that perspective.
So, to use a journalistic term, would it be right or wrong to call him the development man of Maharashtra politics?
Not just journalistic term, I would say yes. Behind his politics, the driving force was that he should be remembered for development above anything else. And he would have been happy with this tag, even if you call it journalistic.
Professor Palshikar, thank you very much for the time you've given me. Thank you very much for sharing your analysis and understanding of Ajit Pawar and his politics.
My
I'm
pleasure.
deeply grateful.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, stay safe.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.